Rise and Fall of Florence Houteff, Part 2. So in this presentation, we're going to get into more that we want to show about the history of Florence Houteff in regards to the rod movement. And we're going to enter into some very interesting things here, brethren, that a lot of Davidians down through the years probably haven't pondered too much. We've kind of done a deep dive into the history with Florence Houteff, and we want to bring some things to light that some of you may have not pondered, may have not been aware of. And these are very enlightening, very disturbing things that we've got to show. And so before we begin, we always ask that you do the prayer request, John 13:16. Request the Lord guide you into all truth, and He will be faithful. So let us begin. Okay, so on the beginning of our presentation, we want to look at the Hermitson family positions. If you'll notice in the red, we've highlighted what some of those positions were. Of course, the secretary was Florence, and this was in February of 37, so it looks like this was right after her marriage, because we know that it took place in the beginning. I believe it was January of 37. So this is a position that she held as secretary. Florence Houteff, at the young age of not even 18 yet, was secretary. And now we see her mother was the treasurer back then. And I believe her mother stayed the treasurer for many years. So both of these Hermitson people were involved very closely in the council, and that was their work. And then also we find that in the publishing department, I wasn't aware of this, maybe some of you weren't as well, that the mother, Sophia Hermitson, was involved in editing. Now this is very, very curious, because we know that the new codes were published after the death of Brother Houteff. And it shows us right here that the mother, Sophia, had well-known experience with editing Victor Houteff's work. So to what degree that she was involved in the new codes, we don't know, but certainly she had the experience and the wherewithal to provide the new code information to the field. And we don't, like I said, we don't know the extent of it, but this is noteworthy. So let's look at the family, the Hermitson family arrangement, and it developed. Sophia, her mother, and her brother were very close to Florence, and we gather a lot of this from George Sather's memoirs, and they're found in Baylor University. If some of you are ever in the Waco, Texas area, where you can go to Baylor University, you can also see for yourself George Sather's memoirs. And he was a former council member with Brother Houteff. And I think he was there for at least 10 years, if not longer. And so he was well familiar with the ongoings of the council, even while Brother Houteff was there. And of course, he was very familiar after the death, because he was on the council as well when Florence Houteff took over. So in this memoirs, he has the question and answer period that was given to him by a man called Mr. McGee that worked with the Baylor University. And we can read the different questions that were asked in this interview. And it was, what were the issues that the council began to deal with as they looked to the future after the death of Brother Houteff? What were the first big issues that the council began to struggle with? Was it the question of who would be the leader? And Brother Sather said, yeah, I think it was, but I think the Hermitson family really, we say, we have that saying, put one over on us, on the rest of us. What is the word we want? Pulled a coup d'etat. So isn't that powerful, brethren? Brother Sather was right there, and he felt that the Hermitson family was up to something. And he called it a coup d'etat. Well, we know a coup d'etat means that you've got an agenda, and you want to pull something over, and you want to get something worthwhile in your coop. And so this is very disconcerting, brethren, that this is an eyewitness to what happened. All right, we continue with the interview. How did the council go about, and when did they begin going about dealing with the question of leadership? Who would be the leader? Did they do it a month after Brother Houteff's death, or was it a year later, or just when? It was immediate, the day of the funeral, maybe even before the funeral. It might have been even before the funeral. Oliver came to me, and he said this. Before Brother Houteff died, he told Florence that she should be the vice president and be the manager, and that I should be elected to the council as a council member to assist her. And then Brother Sather said, I tell you, I think the Hermitsons were ambitious. Oh boy, brethren, we're getting more and more clues here that something was up with the Hermitsons. They were up to something, and it looks like they had some goals in mind. So a prophecy prediction plan is hatched. Mr. McGee, Mrs. Houteff was now vice president and general manager. How did things develop from that point forward? She said, I'm interested in the Bible study, and I want to do some private studying. Well, it wasn't long after that, 1955, and Mrs. Houteff cornered me one day in the office. We closed Sabbath at noon on Friday, so everybody could go home and get ready for the Sabbath. She cornered me there, and she talked all afternoon to me, trying to persuade me of her idea in Revelation 11. You haven't got the proof. You haven't got the backing of it. Where is the proof of this? I was courteous with her. I wasn't rough. I should have even made fun of it, but I didn't. She was in earnest. I thought she had lost her mind. Wow, brethren, this is again very disconcerting. We see that Florence Houteff had something on her mind, and that was Revelation 11. We also want to make a correction that in part 1 we said that she had Revelation 12 on her mind, but no, it was a Revelation 11, the prophecy of Revelation chapter 11. Here we see a picture of John writing out the prophecy of Revelation 11. Among other things, it discusses the two witnesses, the 1260 days, and so forth and so on. So the understanding of those on Mount Carmel, Don Adair attributes it also that while Brother Houteff was studying at the very end of his life, he was coming to the conclusion that there must be an anti-type fulfillment of Revelation 11. In other words, in the latter days, there was supposed to be some anti-type fulfillment of Revelation 11. And, of course, this was well known on the camp. And the fact is that Sister Houteff, on the night that he died, we learned in presentation number 1 that she was so interested that she wanted to get from Brother Houteff the answer to what he had found in his studies. And, of course, he never disclosed that. He died, and the issue was not revealed. And so this issue of Revelation 11 is an important part in this in the events going forward. So Revelation becomes her obsession. But we want to ask this question, but was this obsession for wanting truth? Or was this a calculated plan to end the whole thing and fleece the flock? In other words, a family plan to make a ridiculous prophecy that would not come to pass. Sell the goods, stash the cash, pack up, and move on with life. Brethren, we've got to sit down and ponder this. This is very, very pointed question. We have to really ponder this because we're going to look at all the clues, all the facts that transpired. And you've got to wonder, was this calculated? So what do we have as far as facts so far? Number 1, Florence exhibited a disturbing coldness immediately upon Victor's death. Number 2, Florence was secretary and her mother was treasurer. and had knowledge of the property values and the funds. Number 3, they added her brother to the council after the death of Victor Houteff, gaining much leverage for future decisions of the council. Decisions were soon made, led by Florence, number 4, to place the rod upon the altar. Number 5, the symbolic code newsletters were now controlled by Florence and her council, making their plans public for their future agenda. These are all 5 facts, brethren, that we cannot deny, and they give us a lot of clues about what really transpired here. And then, of course, we have the note here for those that may not be aware, but all the codes that were controlled and published by Florence and her council were the ones, Volume 10, Number 7, May 1955, and afterwards. These were controlled by Florence and not authorized by Victor Houteff to be published. This is very key to understanding our history. Victor Houteff kept, so-called the story goes, that he kept these unpublished sermons in card files or in files put away. Now you have to ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Some of these were pulled out in the 40s, early 40s, and so forth. Why didn't Victor Houteff pull them out and publish them himself while he was alive? He didn't do it, and so this is very concerning because she did it upon her own. She took the authority to go in there and do something the prophet did not do and did not want. If he had written some kind of a will or some kind of authorization after his death that just like Sister White, you are authorized to publish all my writings, he never did that. So this is very disconcerting. So now we get to the knockout blow begins. As present truth believers knew, a warning was given by inspiration in the White House Recruiter. You are all familiar, or at least most of you, of this very, very powerful forecast of trouble from unsuspecting foes. And we want to highlight that red part. We must be alert, too, to realize that the blow is to come from surprisingly unsuspected foes, from professed friends of the gospel, who are no less pious than were priests in Christ's day. Oh, brethren, this is so telling. The prophet under inspiration saw that somebody in the message, very close, very professed and pious, would betray us. Now, the story goes, and we've heard this from both Sister Bonnie and Brother Don Adair, that Brother Houteff one day in the sermons broke down and cried. Okay? He was hurt. Could it have been that he saw in vision, a dream, somehow, some way from the Lord, that his wife would be the one? Very powerful, brother. Very powerful. This is just foretelling of what the prophet knew. So the announcement is made, and this can be found in, well, it was actually done prior to this, but this was confirmation, and this was found in Symbolic Code number 14, volume 14, number 6, page 8. If the message and the work of the shepherd's rod is God's truth as we believe it to be, the 1260 days of revelation, as the symbolic codes have explained, that's her symbolic codes, by the way, not the prophet's symbolic codes, will end sometime this spring. Then will follow the war that will kill the 2 witnesses. And later on in that same code on page 29, Mount Carmel hereby serves notice that she now leaves the prophecy of Revelation 11, as the code has explained it, as the test by which the Lord will demonstrate whom he is leading. Can I read that again, brethren? As the test by which the Lord will demonstrate whom he is leading. These words were by Florence Houteff and her council, not Victor Houteff. So if you happen to be a Seventh-day Adventist or reading and watching these presentations, please take note. You've been told a lie by the Mother Church, by the leaders of the SDA Church, that the false prophecy of Ezekiel 9 coming in 1959 was not by Brother Houteff. It was by the wife and her council. And we also want to make a note that the code was sent out to Davidians, and some say over 1,000 people arrived in 1959, and particularly in the month of April, to the Waco, Texas compound for the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. So we can read in the council meeting, and this was right prior to that actual date, held in the office of the vice president, Sister Houteff, March 26, 1959. So this is just a few weeks right before the date. The council now set about to determine the exact date for the commencement of the 120 days of Revelation 11. It was in October of 1955 that the code article on the 1260 days was written. It was thought that this might be the beginning of the time. The records were gotten out and mailing of the November code occurred November 9, 1955. So they used that as the date to determine the 1260 days. And with this date as the starting point and counting the 1260 days, the period ends April 22nd, 1959. Brethren, this is powerful. Florence Houteff and her council now put the rod on the altar. And we can see this is from historical documents that are publicly available. A devastating prophecy, brethren, that was predicted and ultimately was to lead to the knockout blow. So we want to conclude that this is the end of part 2, and in our final presentation in part 3, we will get into more of the Florence Houteff involvement in the events. And as we said before, it will get even more disturbing once we see the more evidence that it sure starts to look like it was calculated, brethren. It was not a innocent, oops, we miscalculated, we accidentally did a innocent miscalculation of the prophecy. No, it could have been much deeper than this, brethren. This is what's so sad when we discover the true facts. So we hope you've been blessed, and we're giving these presentations so that you can be in position to address anything that comes your way in regards to Florence Houteff and her involvement of this message. So we enjoyed speaking to you again, and we're going to work on part 3 very soon and get that final part out to you. So until we talk next time, may God continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.